welcome back to our second episode of the Farlingay podcast. Here with Mrs. Mason and me, Mr. Krasonis, aka Mr. K. Sorry, I do that. It's very cringy, but carry on. And as a special guest today, we have Mr. Austin.
Hello. Yes, wonderful. I'll put on my posh voice for today, shall I?
Oh, well, yes, thank you,
Something
please.
a little bit different.
Not my Essex accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, okay.
As long as it's not Ipswich. No, I'm only joking.
Fantastic. Where do we start? Do you want to tell us a bit about your career journey
My
so far?
career journey. Well, my career journey hasn't been a straightforward one.
That's what we like.
Yeah, let's see. I've been a scuba instructor. I've been a boat captain. I've been a barman. Sort of a bar manager. I've been working in factories. I've done lots of things. I've done it all. I've done my degree. I did some outdoor education in lovely area of Wales, and then about 13 years ago, I became qualified as a teacher. So yeah, that's kind of very much my snapshot of my journey. But it's been lots of ups and downs and lots of sort of I don't really know what I'm going to do in my life. Sort of situations.
Which is an important bit of this podcast, and one of the main reasons we're doing it, because we want the young people to realise that not everything is like straightforward and everything comes out to the other. And when you get to that crossroads of I don't know what I'm going to do next, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just another opportunity to explore.
I mean, when I was at school, it's GCSE is not an issue. Okay, went through that, no worries. Didn't really work. So didn't work, did okay. I don't recommend not working because then it didn't set me up for the next stage.
Yeah.
Because A levels were a step up, and I didn't know how to work, and I found that when revision came and things like that, I had bad habits, bad work ethic, and I just thought I could breeze through that, and I couldn't. I think my predicted grades were E, D. Yeah. And that wasn't...
Is that what made you drop out of A-levels?
Yeah, what made me drop out, just because there was no way... I wanted to do marine biology. That's what I wanted to go to university. I wanted to study that, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go and save the planet, save the world, and work with sharks, and do all this, that, and the other. And there was no way I was going to get there. No way at all. I kicked back, I'd relaxed far too much. And by the time I realised that, it was too late. And then it was, I had meetings with teachers and just trying to find other options. And I wasn't going to get what I needed to get to where I wanted to be.
Because I think that's quite important, because a lot of young people who stay on here for sixth form, or they come from other high schools in the area after doing their GCSEs, have always said that they really feel that A-levels are a massive step up from GCSE, and you obviously felt...
I found it very much so. I mean, GCSE, I was fortunate enough in that I understood the subjects, and I could get through, without putting a huge amount of effort in. I was fortunate in that way, but that set me up for later. Well, it didn't set me up for later on. So it would have been great if I'd actually done some work for the GCSE, and then that way I'd have been more prepared for that next for the A level, and gone, okay, right, well now I've got those good habits. I can really work at it, and then I can do well at the A levels. And it just didn't work out that way. It wasn't that way, and I ended up being in a situation where I had to choose of either finishing my A levels and not getting where I wanted to get to, and then just being disappointed, or going on and do something different.
So did you drop out of your A levels in the first year, or did you do it in the second year? So it's different then, wasn't it?
I dropped out at the Christmas of my year 13.
Right.
So I'd done a year and a half of A levels, and then it was getting to the towards the end, and just said it's not working. It's not going to work. So what are the options? And at that time, my love was marine environment and things like that. And I was just like, oh, cool, I'm going to go diving.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you do next?
Yeah.
So how did that come
I was
about?
already a diver, so I started diving when I was 13.
Okay.
And I was already a diver. I'd done a number of different dives. I went on an expedition when I was 16 to Belize and did some marine conservation.
With the school? Or
No,
just
independent. With a marine conservation group. So I went over there, did surveying, and I was just like, you know what, I just want to go, I want to teach diving. That's what I want to do, go and live in the Caribbean, be relaxed and just,
Don't we all?
Why not?
Want to live in the Caribbean?
Why not? So, I dropped out of school and went to America and got qualified as a diving instructor.
Did you have any connections to where you went, or we just packed your bags and just...
The connection I had is I'd been over there previously on holiday, so I knew the dive centre. So I had connections with that dive centre, and so I went there and did the qualifications, and then because they're based in Florida, so it meant a lot of their connections were with companies in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Okay.
So which meant that I then went from there, British Virgin Islands. So I spent some time there working, then came back to the UK, worked in Cyprus for a little bit as a safety diver, then went back to the Caribbean and worked in the Cayman Islands. I managed to get my last job. I think I walked in there and the manager goes to me, he goes, okay, so you're a diving instructor? I said, yes. He said, so why should I give you a job? I said, well, I can drive boats. He said, well, can you drive boats? Well, I said, and I looked out the window and I said to him, "See any of those?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I can drive any of those." He said, "Okay, then prove it." So I went and proved it, and he said, "Okay, you got a job," and that was it. So that was my interview.
Yeah.
So
was the money good?
The tips were good.
Well, the tips were
Yeah,
good.
it was.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the Cayman Islands is tax free, and I think so the money was okay, and then we would average around about $600 a week in tips.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money, I think.
So were you about 19 then, 18, 19?
That when I was in the Caymans, I was 21.
Okay.
So yeah, I left school when I was 19 because I'd had to drop down a year for various reasons, and so I did the second bit. The Cayman Islands I was 21, going on 22. Yeah, it was fun. It was certainly an experience, and I saw some amazing things. I mean, we had this. Oh, this is cool. Right, we had this dolphin. Right, there was this dolphin that years ago during a hurricane had escaped from this marine park in Honduras, and him and his mate, and often they're sort of mate for life. Certainly in that situation, had come over to the Cayman Islands. She had got washed up, and he had then, because we were on a smaller island, there was only about 1,200 people on the island. He came over, and then was just swimming around. Now the thing is, he was a wild dolphin, but also tame.
Yeah.
So often you would sort of get in the water, and we nicknamed him Spot, because he had a little spot on his tail, and we'll get in the water, and then he would just be swimming along with us, and you could just swim along with your hand on his back and everything. But this is a wild dolphin,
Yeah.
and I remember this one time I was just there eyeball to eyeball with this bottlenose dolphin. And it was like, this is the life.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool.
That's amazing.
So then what happened? So how did you go from this is the life to, okay, I'm going to go back and train to be a teacher now?
Because I was too young to appreciate it. In all seriousness, I wanted something more. I needed something to stimulate my brain.
Yeah.
There's only so many times that you can answer the question of, so what was that big blue fish down there? And then you just go, okay, and we'll get answers. So this is an island. Can you swim underneath it? Do you commute here from America? No, we don't. So and in the end, I just needed something a bit more.
Yeah.
So I came back to the UK and sort of decided, and I thought, okay, what can I do? And spent a few years figuring it out. And it was a conversation, and I was thinking I wanted to go into sales and marketing and things like that. Didn't want to, but I had a conversation with my mum on the train down to an interview in London, and during that conversation realised that actually my passion was marine biology.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do, and I went into the interview and I said to he goes, "So why do you want this job?" And I said, "Well, I don't really." So why are you here? I don't know. And turned around and walked out.
Maybe not. No.
Yeah, no, don't do that. That's not how you conduct an interview. But by that point, I'd made up my mind. So then I looked into what I needed to do because I had no A levels. So I needed to look into what I needed to do, and I found at University of Plymouth they did a thing called a foundation degree, where you do in 1 year you do A level equivalents. So it consisted of biology, chemistry, maths, and statistics. So I did that, and to get onto marine biology, you had to be in the top 5. So I think overall I came out with about 80% overall, my overall mark. Got onto the marine biology course, and then did that for 3 years. And then so I think I was about 28 when I graduated, and then went on to worked in the outdoor education, working in sort of outdoor sort of environmental education, they call it, and did that, and and that was quite good fun. The money wasn't great. And then but it got me involved in teaching. In that respect, and I saw how it was interesting. Seeing the kids and seeing them grow up and seeing them learn new things and rewarding and stuff like that. So again, it got me thinking, and eventually it was like, oh, actually, okay, well, let's go. I enjoy educating people. Diving, I was educating people. The outdoor education, I was teaching people. So
common thread.
There's a common thread. Let's go and teach people about stuff that I find interesting. Science I find interesting, whether it's biology, physics, or chemistry, I don't care. It's interesting. So I went and did my PGCE, my postgraduate certificate of education. And
where did you do that?
I did that in Plymouth again.
Okay.
So I did that in Plymouth because I knew the area, knew the university,
Okay.
and so that's why I went down there, and then moved over this way because my dad was living in Suffolk.
Okay.
And so I thought, I've got a job in Leiston. Never heard of the place. And I thought, I'll go to Leiston. Yeah, that'll do. They gave me a job, and then that was in 2012.
But that attitude is actually very positive. It's like opportunity awareness and not being scared of the unknown.
No.
You had never heard of Leiston, but it was like, I don't want to. Obviously, you had chosen some of familiar places before, like you've been to Florida, so then that's where you went for the job, and Plymouth again. But also, you weren't afraid to just go, I'll take that. I'll take that challenge. And I'll rise up to it, which is an important mentality to have.
But
there must have been times, though. I mean, I agree with you, but there must have been times when you thought, oh gosh, how am I going to finance going to Florida for a start? Because when you're 19.
Fortunately, my mum had some inheritance.
Okay,
and
so that helps.
And she said, I'll tell you what, we'll pay for this because my elder brother. They financed his university. Yeah. They paid for that instead of university.
Okay.
So when I went to university, I was self-funded.
Right. Okay.
So I didn't ask them for any money. I funded myself.
So how did you self-fund the university? Did you have to get part-time jobs?
I worked about 5 days a week.
Yeah.
In bars, and it was a struggle. It was a stretch. Meals were not always eaten as they should have been, just because I couldn't afford it. But fun.
So would you, knowing what you know now, would you do things differently? Would you have studied more, or like completed your A levels and done the traditional route into?
You know what? That's difficult, and the reason why that's difficult is because the route I did has led me to this point here. Yeah. Where I met my fiance, I've got my baby. All these things, these great things that would never have happened if I'd done the traditional route. So, but I do wonder what would have happened if, would I have been able to, would I have stayed in marine biology for the rest of my life? Would I, where would I be now? I don't know. There were some decisions I made that I do regret, just because they didn't add anything to my life.
Oh, okay.
I made some. So I helped a friend run a company. So she wanted to launch a company, so I helped a friend out with that. And I think that might have been a decision I probably wouldn't have done because I didn't really have my heart in it. I didn't
Yeah,
want to
it
do it. I was
wasn't
just
your-
going, yeah, okay, let's do it. Yeah, great. I get to go to the British Virgin Islands. Woohoo! But
Yeah.
I didn't have my heart in it, and I'm not sure that doing that again, whether I would have done that.
So
Just-
not doing something like
That you don't love.
half-heartedly
Yeah,
is
yeah,
important
I
to,
didn't. I didn't have my heart in it. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was sort of going, oh, I'll help a friend out. Oh, and it seems like fun. But actually, in hindsight, I think if I'd stayed here, I could have. It would have been better for me in terms of decisions made. So I think that that's the only thing I'd possibly regret. I wish I'd worked harder for GCSEs.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I do.
Yeah.
Because I got 1D for old school, that's a 3. And it still bugs me today. Okay, that was nearly 30 years ago, and it still bugs me that I got that 1 3.
I have a question I've been thinking about for the past few minutes. In your job interviews that you've been through, what is the reaction when you say that you've been a scuba diver in the Caribbean and a boat captain and things like that? Do they?
Mixed, it depends on the job that I've gone for. Some people go, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Some people just gloss over it. I think
Irrelevant to the job.
It's irrelevant. I think that when I started working in the outdoor education, that it was relevant because people were like, okay, right, so you've got a background in marine biology and you've done all of this and you've done all that and you've got real life experience and you can. With teaching, it didn't really come into it a lot just because it wasn't necessarily overly relevant to the job at hand. So it's.
That makes you. I would say this as a sweeping statement, but I think that teachers who have experienced quite a lot previously actually make really good, well-rounded teachers, don't they? Because you
What are
can.
you trying to say?
It's been a while since you've run,
Yeah.
which I will speak to you about in a minute, actually. But what do you think? Do you think that helps you become the teacher that you are? I'm not saying that all teachers should go down that exact same route, but
yeah, I think that the experiences I've had, in terms of I've worked with everybody from all walks of life, whether it's rich people, poor people, able-bodied, disabled-bodied, black, white, anything. I've worked with them at some point. And I think that has really helped me because it helps me understand sometimes where the kids are coming from, the background they're coming from, the struggles that they make, and also enables me to empathise a little bit. And I think that yes, those experiences, those jobs, they haven't been my end goal, but it has given me that experience and given me. I remember talking to somebody when I was building roof boxes for cars, and I remember chatting to him, and he said, you know what? He said, I wish I worked harder at school. I said, why is that? He said, I got no GCSEs. This is my job for life. He said, and I'm bored. And that to me was like, it said a lot, and I felt that was, it's experiences like that made me understand and see where people are coming from and where they're going to and stuff. So.
Good. I was going to go back, if you didn't mind, I was just going to ask about the marathon. Because obviously you ran the London Marathon.
I did run the London Marathon.
London Marathon. And I know what it's like because I've done it myself, and it's really. No, I didn't say it for that reason. But the reason I'm going into it is because I think that's actually remarkable, and it is really, really difficult, isn't it? And again, when you do something like that, you do meet lots of people, which I think is quite that you should know about, and they're from all different walks of life. And what I've always said is that I feel the marathon is a little bit like high school. Because you train for it a little bit,
A lot.
just a lot, So you train for it, but when you start off in year 7, you're a little bit nervous, you're excited, aren't you? And you have to pace yourself a little bit. Sometimes you start off a little bit too quickly. And then you have to slow down. Do you see where I'm going with this?
I see where you go. Yeah, I think it's. I think that the marathon compared to school is actually a really good analogy. I think when I did the marathon, it was. I did the training. I'd worked hard. I knew I was ready to be there. I was ready to be at that start line. I was ready for my journey. And yeah, the first bit, great, loved it. Yeah, everything's feeling
Yeah.
good, you know, and then you start going through and you're going, okay, it's getting a bit tricky, it's getting a bit difficult.
It gets hard.
And then you start getting to the point as well that your mind starts playing on you. You're thinking, can I do this? Can I finish? Will I get to the end?
Yeah.
And you go through that real downtime. And I think with school sometimes you get to a point where you just go, why am I bothering?
Yeah, why am I doing this?
Why am I
What
doing
is the
this?
point of this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you pick yourself up. And I remember with the marathon, I got to a point where I was running along the embankment, along the side of the Thames, and I knew where I was. And I could see the Houses of Parliament ahead of me. And it was just like, right, I know where I am now.
Yeah. So
I'm
I
going
can
to
make
go.
it home.
I can make it. I know it's only a mile and a half.
Yeah.
I can make it. And it was that, yeah, like school, you know, you get to year 11 and you just, and I speak to a lot of the year 11s and they're like, okay, I'm nearly there.
Yeah.
I'm nearly there. Let's just get this out of the way.
And you need to push
And
through
you need to
that.
just
You
push
do have to
through.
push through the pain. And
Yeah.
what I found as well is sometimes a voice from the crowd, a stranger for instance, would offer you a sweet or just a kind word or say, come on Sarah,
Yeah,
or
you
come
can
on,
do it.
you can do it. And high school's quite like that as well. When you have those difficult times, then you have a kind voice.
And it
Come
and
from
it,
nowhere,
and it's
don't
not,
you?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It comes from nowhere.
Yeah.
It's not people that you would expect.
Yeah,
it's
it's not,
It's
yeah.
not necessarily your friends, your family. I mean, I didn't see my family on the run. I just
Yeah.
didn't see them.
Because it's so
But
busy, isn't it?
Because it's so busy. But there were people on the side of the road, and there was one person. I remember one lady, and she had a sign. And this was along the embankment. It was just before I was going. And it said, "Remember why you're doing this," or "Remember your why." I think that was it. And that just made me go, "Oh yeah." And it was that and it only needs a fraction of the moment. It doesn't need big banners or anything. It was written on a piece of cardboard,
Yeah.
and it was just, and that's, you know, with school sometimes it is like that. Doesn't necessarily, could just be one little thing that just clicks into place, and you just go, yeah, I've got this now. And that just gave me that little boost, and it was like, yeah, I remember why,
Yeah.
and then it got me to.
Well done
Yeah,
for
that's
it.
so
I think
cool.
that's amazing what you did. I really
Thank
did.
you.
Would you do it again?
I've signed up for next year.
Yeah, good. I'm really
But not for
pleased.
charity this time.
No.
No, not for charity this time. But if I get in, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Why not? It's
Oh,
only
thank you.
26.2 miles.
Yeah, that's too much for me.
Excellent.
That's 25.5 more miles than I can do.
Hey, I've seen you out on the football pitch. I reckon you could do it.
Don't do that. Shall we take some questions from our audience?
Yeah, sure. Who would
Then-
like to ask Sarah a question?
What did you do when you went to all these different places? Like, what animals did you see?
Right. Okay. So when I went, what animals did I see? Now, when I went to the Caribbean, obviously a lot of the things I saw were marine life. So I saw loads of turtles, sharks, dolphins, as I said, but loads of little fish and really cool corals. But it became, after a while, you saw these animals all the time. And it started becoming more about the experiences, like seeing the light shining in through the water and just dappling. It was just like something magical. But yeah, saw quite a few different things. Saw some beautiful sunsets, sunset, thunderstorms. I was sitting on the dock, and there was a thunderstorm over the sea, and the lightning was onto the sea, and it was nice and warm. So we were sitting there, nice and relaxed. It was lovely in the evening, and we were just sitting on the dock, just watching this lightning storm going off, and it was something I can't describe. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. So those were probably some of the really cool things I saw.
Thank you. Yep.
Do you feel like the struggles you've had has made you like a better teacher?
Yes, yeah, I think it does. Like I was saying, I feel that I know that there isn't just one path. Okay, it's not. Life isn't just about school, GCSEs, A levels, university, whatever. I know that there's so much else out there, and I've seen it, I've spoken to it, I've worked in it. Okay, and it's enabled me to sort of get that better experience, so I can hopefully help people like yourself or whoever, and sort of look at other avenues, besides academia as such. So it's I think this helps. Yeah.
Cool. Do you want something next?
I think we're we're about.
Oh, are we nearly
like,
out?
Yeah,
Oh,
3
really
or
sorry.
Sorry, I chatted way too much.
Sorry,
No, we can
but
we
he
can
will
do
answer
we can do a part 2.
Yeah, that would be good.
If you shall we take one more question?
Let's go
So
one more.
you choose who you want.
Oh, no, because then they'll accuse me of favouritism.
Okay, well we'll choose. Let's lady.
Actually, shall we get one of the year 11s at the back?
Yeah.
Because this will be their last opportunity.
True.
If you were to change one thing about your past, what would you change?
Right. So let me repeat it for the microphone. If you were to change something from your past, what would it be?
That is a tough question. Thanks. One thing I think would have.
Well, our podcast is really
Yeah,
tough, isn't
man.
it?
I don't think there's any. Oh.
Very deep.
If I'm honest, it would go back to the school thing. It'll go back to the school thing. Go back to. Sorry, don't roll your eyes. It'll probably go back to the GCSEs, and the reason being is because it sets me up, and it meant that when I left school, I messed up with the A levels. It meant it limited my options. I would have still had all these options available to me, but by doing the foundation year, yes, I made some great friends, but I had to do that. I didn't have a choice. And that's the thing, it's a case of, by not putting the effort in for GCSEs, that led me to a point where, for my A levels, I didn't have the right work ethic. Without the A levels, I didn't have the options available to me to be able to go, well, do I want to become a dive instructor? Yeah, okay. Do I want to do marine biology? Yeah, okay. I only had the option of the diving instructor because that was the only qualifications I had. I didn't have the option to do something else at that point. So I think that's where, that's probably the one thing I would change.
It's playing the game by its
Playing
rules,
game.
isn't
It's,
it?
I've worked out how to get around it and get there in the end, but it's cost money. It's cost hassle. It cost me my hair.
Mental.
When I left school, I had a full head of hair. So, obviously there's something there.
I mean, at least you can run faster.
I can. Aerodynamic.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Austin.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Thank you very much.
I've
need
really
to wrap
enjoyed
it up.
it. We'll do part 2.
Well, part 2 with
Yeah.
everyone, really.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Thank you.
See you next
See you
time,
next
guys.
time.
Thank you.